The new norm was one of those viral moments that hit the internet and immediately became utterly derided and mocked from every goddamn angle, for frankly pretty damn fair reasons, seeing as it is a take on the animated sitcom format, which seems to despise the idea of animation through its abuse of AI and the blandest goddamn style you've ever seen.
Ah! What's that?
Progress.
To despise the idea of comedy through its completely lackluster attempts to effectively just mimic what feels like conservative and anti-woke jokes, with no regard for any of the conventions of humour such as being funny or having a punchline.
You know there'll be jokes.
And all in all, did truly come across as an incredibly lazy piece of low effort to make something which quickly appealed to a recent wave of conservative market support for anything which divisively links itself to that political alignment, and then use that group to try and make a ton of money from them. Yet, while that was the assumption that I had, and I'm sure many people had, what I discovered when I went digging around in the background of the New Norm show was something way crazier than all of that. And ultimately, I had originally planned to discuss the show and talk about what it was doing within its narratives and representation, but frankly, who cares about any of that? Nothing of it matters because the thing failed so spectacularly that I don't think it even really had a cultural impact except for being a joke in and of itself. Eating the dog. And everything that I could say about it would just tie back to that same comment of how it's boring and tedious and poorly written and acted as if it was indeed a parody of itself. But while the New Norm show is nothing much at all, the story of the people behind the New Norm show, the companies and the indeed countries, is something which really does tell a tale of a vast web of interconnecting affiliations and insidious manipulations that ultimately failed because everyone involved is a goddamn fucking idiot.
The new norm ain't the same.
I think it's been long enough into the video that I can swear now. Anyway, that's the intro, and before you're asking why the lighting looks weird, I'm hiding out in the darkness of the night to try and get away from the people who made the New Norm show in case they try and assassinate me. That's a joke. I'm just recording super late because I got a real motivation to do it all of a sudden, and let's be real, the set looks about the same if slightly more orange. Let's get into it and find out who is truly responsible for the New Norm. Now, the first thing that came up of note when looking into the background of the New Norm is the website for the show. A website that touts its successes, which details its vast amount of media and all the views that said media has supposedly generated. A website that seems less like it's a place to go and watch the sitcom or to appreciate it with other fans, and more like the people involved are trying to market what they are making to others who will hopefully give them money to keep making it. Keep that in mind, because that is a very important thing to take note of, as we then go to look at the obvious place for any grift to start, which is the New Norm store, from which you can apparently, presumably, buy the New Norm beer cozies and potentially find links for the Norm coin that they made in episode 5.
No!
Oh, there's no shop. It merely says that it will be coming shortly at some point, and even asks me if I'm the store owner and if I want to log in. I'm not the store owner, and I really don't want to. So it looks as if this grift isn't quite panning out from this angle. The merch side of things is certainly not taking off, and appears as if it never really took off, seeing as finding people posting pictures or discussing their ownership of the new Norm beer cozies is a pretty damn rare thing indeed.
Turn any beer into normal beer with the normal beer cozy.
Well, apparently this grift has clearly not worked out very well. And another strange thing from this new Norm website is the fact that it doesn't list the people involved with it anywhere.
Half the employees in this building have been made up. This office is a goddamn ghost town.
You can't really find the credits for the people involved in creating this, nor actually many credits for the people who did voice work on it, anywhere in the videos themselves. I mean, we know that Dave Rubin and Larry Elder and Elon Musk and JP Sears are voice actors for the show, because they've all mentioned that they are, and people worked out their voices from watching it, but the actual creatives are, well, keeping themselves to themselves here. So I did the only logical thing from that point, which was to hop on over to see if IMDb had anything for me. Nope, no mention of them anywhere, and the IMDb pages has been so poorly monitored that when you read the summaries of the episode, you find that multiple additional seasons have been tacked on, full of ridiculous titles, including this one from season 3, episode 1, titled Norm and Charlie Support Israel. What a bunch of jokesters on this page, am I right? Full of pranks and totally not clue-giving hints towards the reality of the new norm. Finally, I conceded that I'd have to look at Wikipedia. Eventually, sometimes you just have to go there when nothing else is helping, and finally it listed that the creators for the show were Akiva and Sophia Prell, and the developer for it was Jose Bahar. Who the fuck are these people? They don't even have Wikipedia links at all. And that's actually by design, as you find out very quickly that looking up these people connects you to an account on Studio 32 and an account on LinkedIn that also don't mention their involvement in the new norm at all. At this point, I was hitting a bit of a dead end. I mean, these people might as well have never existed. It was like the show was written by ghosts in the machine, and that was until I hit this comment by Barry the Serial King on a Reddit post in r/cartoons. A comment that links to a Wayback Machine archive of Woke World, a predecessor website to that new Norm show website I mentioned earlier on, and one that currently doesn't actually have any archive at all. That's right, the URL for that Woke World thing is excluded from the Wayback Machine, so whatever Barry the Serial King's talking about, I can't actually see. Someone really went back and scrubbed the files here to make sure that nobody found out any of what I'm discussing here. However, Barry the Serial King has given me another name to work with. Woke World, as well as an additional name to add to that list of people, Yarov Newman, who apparently works for a website called Pitch Dev Studios, who is presumably the animation company that the Prells hired to create the new norm, with the aid of AI of course. There's also another interesting Reddit post from Living Dead Boy 12, which purports to be the original episode plans for the new norm before it got turned into what is now available on tiny YouTube channels, 2-minute shorts which barely count as a show and have virtually no plot at all, and random promos that don't seem to really connect to anything, like this beer cozy ad, this Cleveland Guardians commentary video, and this utterly insane Elon Musk / AOC Congress video. Now, at this point, a lesser content creator would be happy to call it a day, get back to just mocking the show and presume that we'll never really know the people behind all of this. But I'm autistic, and at this point I was invested in finding out who the fuck was so committed to hiding their involvement in this that they were scrubbing any and all links that let people know they were responsible. Oh, and if anyone is clamoring for me to at least cover a little bit of the show itself, I don't know, what about this episode number 2, which displays Russian interference within the American political system to incite divisiveness and tear down what is one of their major global rivals? Something which is actually kinda true and realistic to what's happening, yet the way the show engages with that is by using it to accuse the left and progressive ideals of being the thing that the Russians are really trying to support to bring down the beautiful system that Trump and the Republicans are honorably attempting to restore with American dominance.
My plan worked. They're destroying each other.
It's a thing which is kinda hilarious until you realize that it's just a blatant manipulation tactic of accusing the other side of doing the exact thing that you are doing. Because that creates interference in any real investigations into, actual treason or political crimes.
Invested a certain amount, you got to come to a dinner with President Trump.
Okay, that's your bit of the show discussed. Let's get back to the thing that's actually interesting. So something that gave me another avenue of exploration in this was the discovery that while the Woke World site had been scrubbed from the Wayback Machine, if you type in the URL for woke-world, it redirects you to this website for a company called AGNC Group Creative Capital. A company who is apparently all about connecting money to people who are looking to try and run ad campaigns online and generate brand awareness, as well as connections to public speakers and various other speaking components that might be useful for the client base of this company. Okay, so I guess this means that the new norm was put together by this corporation. It was a branding opportunity that they created, and that they then animated through this other studio, Pitch Dev Studios. And that's where the various names that I've been mentioning pop up. Akiva and Sophia Prell are the heads of AGNC Group Creative Capital. Yariv Newman is an animator linked to Pitch Dev Studios that they hired to make the actual show, and I still don't really know how Jose Bahar comes into all of this. And none of this really tells you who made the show, right? Akiva Prell is just listed on the AGNC website as being an advisor to 300 different world leaders, including the Prime Ministers of Canada and Australia, and linked to 2 different US candidates for president, and also the Prime Minister of Israel. Actually, it is kinda interesting how much Benjamin Netanyahu pops up all over the webpage for AGNC Group. Like, they really want people to know that they have those kind of connections to Israel. And at this point, it was another dead end. I mean, I'd found a company, but that doesn't really give me anything much at all to work with. This company is relatively secretive about what they actually do, and they don't really express themselves much openly. A real shadow behind the scenes kind of situation here with politics and their interest in them. But that was until I discovered the most important resource for all of this. That resource being a post-images gallery showing the agency group's slideshow corporate proposal of the new norm for potential investors. And it was at this point that everything got really mad. See, this slideshow suddenly made a lot of things about the new norm make sense, and made it all clearer. Why did it get spread around across the internet and pumped into every corner? Well, that happened because, as is listed on slide 11 and slide 12, AGNC Group had distributed the video through mega and micro influencers in order to boost the New Norm's brand recognition. There's also a funny little bit talking about how woke jokes are part of a multi-billion-dollar brand awareness of issues, something which is really funny considering the absolute failure of the show to really stick on anything whatsoever. But you see here that they push the New Norm through people like Larry Elder and Dave Rubin, both of whom had voice acting within the show, so I guess that was part of getting them on board with it, as well as Ashley St. Clair, Ada Luch, and 20 more mega influencers / 100 more micro influencers. It's interesting that those are the 2 micro influencer names that get mentioned, isn't it? Like, why are those 2 singled out? And the reason for that is because, as we can see on these same slides and on later slides, a major part of how they're going to get this TV show off the ground is by using X, and the subscriber system of that website. And to do that right, they need to get Elon Musk on board.
Thank God for Elon Musk and his shitpost memes.
But the reason that Ashley St. Clair and Ada Luch are important to getting to Elon Musk is that Ada Luch is renowned for being basically an Elon Musk reply girl who he interacts with, presumably because he is trying to find another person to carry yet another one of his freaky only boy sperm donation babies. And Ashley St. Clair is that person from the news who claimed to have had a child with Elon Musk and had to go to Twitter to try and get him to pay child support.
Fathered 12 children with 3 other women, did not respond publicly to the influencer.
Yeah, the New Norm attempted to use the women that Elon Musk is hitting on and getting pregnant to get into his good books so they can boost their profile on X. Because there is no better boost for it than having the literal owner of the site push your crap. Now, this tells us a lot more about the way that New Norm was trying to get its content across, something that is further emphasized in a slide detailing how they wanted to plaster their shitty cartoon figures all over other viral videos in an attempt to latch onto the success of those videos, recognizing that the most popular content on all social media sites is just reposted viral videos. And doesn't that say a fucking ton about the nightmare state of everything online? It's just people rewatching and reliking the same spewed bullshit being pushed by the same accounts trying to farm interactions and engagement. But we have to really turn to slide 15, 16 and 17 to finally get the actual details on the people behind all of this. People like Fred Forcher and Jose Bahar. Finally, I caught you, you fucker, who are the distribution team for this, so the people involved in making sure that this gets given to those influencers and to other people / companies interested in pumping out the branding of it. I want to quickly take a stop here to talk about this Jose Bahar specifically because his name will not stop coming up. He is seen here on this slide in a picture with Dennis Quaid, and that picture is taken from the Instagram for his supposed company Zum Media, which is mentioned in the same slide. Now, what happens when you click on the link for the Zum Media website on their Instagram? Well, wouldn't you guess it, it goes to a dead website with nothing on it. Yeah, another bizarrely scrubbed website in this whole affair. But with the use of Wayback Machine, me and my team, I guess, were able to discover that this website originally just contained a bunch of links for another founder of Zum Media, Todd Huffman, a right-wing miner, although he isn't really a miner, he's more of a producer who has absolutely atrocious songs and who was also featured on the show Gold Rush before spinning that off into Hoffman Family Gold and the Todd Father Returns.
I'm no different than
You're
you.
so full of Todd.
So it's ridiculous.
Which is, the whole Jose Bahar thing is bizarre. Because it doesn't seem like Zum Media is a real company. And it doesn't seem like Jose Bahar really exists outside of these few photos. But he is clearly behind the scenes of a lot of things, and doing an awful lot of buying and selling of show ideas according to this slide. So, you know, a fucking corporate sleazebag with not a single original idea of his own, who just uses money to make more money off the backs of actual successful things or other people's creations. Another person involved in the new norm is its media team manager, Matthew Faraci. A name that you won't know because that's the whole point of being in these secretive production roles in the first place, but he was involved in media management for Sound of Freedom, His Only Son, and The Chosen. i.e. far-right Christian nationalist propaganda TV shows / films and QAnon conspiracy-based films. Yeah, he's also a Zionist who has written LinkedIn articles talking about the importance of Christians supporting Israel. Which brings us to the big slide. Slide number 15, the one about Akiva Prel himself. A slide which contains 3 important new pieces of information. The first is one that confirms that Akiva Prel has worked with the Likud party and Benjamin Netanyahu specifically in crafting the speaking message for that Prime Minister and genocidal maniac. The second one is that this has the icon and tag of Made in Israel by Americans, a tag which is part of fostering closer ties between these two nations, specifically in the interest of upholding Israel interests in American political affairs, and to lobby for further economic and military support of, well, of that genocidal regime. And thirdly, this quote from Dave Diaz, another Zionist Christian who originally started out as a Californian police officer, wow, what a shocker, before transitioning into politics and various other Silicon Valley corporate interests, and is both the founder of Foundations of Freedom, a right-wing organization that attempts to influence an evangelical Christian interpretation of the First Amendment, and a member of AFMDA, or American Friends of Magen David Adom, a humanitarian organization that specifically focuses on raising funding for medical supplies, vehicles, and equipment to specifically support the creation and enforcement of the State of Israel, including its establishment within the Middle East. That's right, it's humanitarian aid for just Israel. Consider the irony of that one with everything going on over there right now, and this quote talks about how the show of the new norm was created by a world-class servant leader in the most holy place on earth, i.e. Israel.
Your side hates Jews!
Okay, that's one thing in common.
And it's at this point that you start to see where maybe the creative force for all of this is coming from. That it is all heavily embedded within the State of Israel and connected in multiple ways to both Zionists and right-wing radical Christian evangelicalism, as well as Elon Musk /X. It's not really much of a surprise, I guess, that the new norm has those kind of connections. But all of a sudden it seems a far cry away from just being a quick grift by some random nobodies, huh? All of a sudden this seems like a big grift by a bunch of vastly connected individuals who are involved with the kind of groups who really want to spread as much propaganda and misinformation and divide the world as much as they physically can to create a smokescreen for them to engage in genocide and attempts to overthrow governments. I bet that a few of you were not thinking that this one would go all the way to Israel, huh? And I guess to be clear here and to make sure nobody jumps down my throat over it, Israel does not represent the Jewish people. To criticize Israel as not being anti-Semitic and to point out the fact that Israel is utilizing its network of supporters and affiliated individuals who want to see the country succeed in wiping out the Palestinians and also take on the rest of the Middle East to secure favorable political conditions for itself, is not buying into some grand conspiracy about Jewish people being behind everything wrong in the world. That sort of shit can fuck right off, but all of this requires a conclusion, right? It requires an ending to it in some way that is satisfactory. And if we look at the new norm, and we look at their ambitions for what they wanted the show to be, a full season of 20-minute long episodes supported by AI animating / writing that would use the monetization features of Elon Musk's X to generate revenue from anti-woke fervor, and the offer for subscribers to get to write their own jokes for the show or interact with AI-generated versions of the characters, we see a big truth about the new norm. It failed. It failed miserably. It aimed for just mediocre, and that is so hard on absolute garbage, a garbage so strong that all it got was 5 episodes that dwindled in size from 3 minutes in the first one to barely a minute in the last one, filled with an absence of jokes that matched the absence of an audience.
Or furry and dressed like dogs.
Ow!
This was a deeply sad loser enterprise created by a bunch of organizations and people who have both ties to Elon Musk through his involvement in the show / with its distributors and potentially with its animation, all of which would make a hell of a sense for him wanting to push X as a legitimate platform that could host and monetize TV shows on it, and also to Israel / Zionist interests who were involved in its creation and in pushing for its marketability, that targeted a deeply sad loser market whose whole identity is defined by hating woke and progressives so much that they will eat up any drivel that purports to be aligned with their interests, and will abuse that sadness to milk money out of them for some of the most depressing rewards I can possibly imagine. A deeply sad loser market that just did not show up for this at all, and which led to the whole thing collapsing faster than X's stock value. Ultimately, this all led to the people involved scrubbing themselves from the project. I mean, the websites have all been deleted, and the credits have been removed or were never there in the first place, because none of these people wanted to be connected to this. None of what I've detailed here and talked about was something that anybody wanted to have found out. And yet, thanks to the power of the internet, where nothing truly stays hidden forever, it's now out in the open. And the important thing to think about from this is that while this failed, how many other things has Elon Musk and Israel been involved in that employ the same anti-woke stuff this does that have succeeded? That have succeeded in being divisive and pushing their interests onto the world? Also, I just wanted to mention this quickly. Do you think they called it the new norm? Because a lot of times when you type in the new norm, what you find is a bunch of articles talking about Israel and how the new norm over there is genocide. And so if they had a show that blew up and became viral called the new norm, that would take over the searches for that? That one's a little bit unsubstantiated and conspiratorial, but I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. Anyway, that's the video, and I hope that you liked it, or that you enjoyed it, or that you found it to be educational, or just interesting. This was a huge detour from the normal content that I make on this channel, and frankly, based on the fact that I'm talking about Israel and genocide, it will not be getting monetized at all. In fact, I think I'll be lucky if it's allowed to stay up by YouTube. So, if you do manage to see it, or if you really like it, then the best way of showing that is by going to my Patreon or my Ko-Fi and subscribing there. The money on there is hugely helpful to keeping this channel running, and I use it to pay for stuff like food, rent, power, internet, all the stuff in my life that I use to keep myself alive and keep making videos. Trust me, I've tested. Without that kind of stuff, the channel wouldn't be existing. If I was dead, none of this would happen. So I am truly deeply grateful to everyone who does subscribe to my Patreon, and the names of those in the $5 and up category should be scrolling past the screen right now. I also want to say a huge thanks to everyone who just watched this video, as that is another pretty big deal. At the end of the day, something that really keeps people coming back to making content is the fact that people like it, and that people engage with it. And so having people do that is a hugely motivational factor. And if you did like it and get this far, then consider liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting, or maybe clicking on some of my other videos. Basically, none of them are like this one. Like I said, it's very different to my normal content, but if you like trans analysis, I've got a hell of a lot of those. Or if you like deep dives on Harry Potter, I've got one of those too. It's 10 hours long, but it is actually quite good and very deeply investigational in a way that I think many people are not about Harry Potter. Some people see it and think that it's just about the movies, but in reality it's about the movies, the games, the mobile games, the spin-off media, the random stuff written online, the random books that exist, the card games. It's basically the entire media multiverse of Harry Potter being analysed for its existence as a universe. And that, I think, is something that does need 10 hours of content to discuss. Regardless, once more, a huge thanks to everyone who helps to support this channel, in whatever way that might be. And I hope that you all have a fantastic day. I really hope that Elon Musk or Israel don't, take me down over this one. Fingers crossed.